Hi everybody, it's Amelia here. Welcome to the Bad Astrologers Q&A video for July 2020. Now you're probably wondering, why is this video coming out so far into August? Well, the answer is that I got so many submissions, over twice what we normally get, that I wanted to give all of your questions plenty of time to respond, get the research ready, and give you the answer that you deserve, that is in depth and in total Bad Astrologer style. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. First on the list we have Cal. They say, okay, I've got a question this time. I'm curious to know how this upcoming Mars retrograde will look like for me when it's square my natal sun in Cancer, and while it's stationing direct, it will be square my natal Mars retrograde in Capricorn within a 1-degree orb. Ooh. If that's too much, whichever of the two you think is more impactful or interesting is fine. It is not too much. Both of those seem really, really important, and I want to address them both. So I think it's interesting that they're both squares. It's no secret, I'm kind of a squares stan. I think of them as drivers. They point you in the right direction, and I think with Mars, this is kind of like cosmic sandpaper. You are being polished to sparkle and shine by the universe, but that polish is an irritant. That's how it manifests at first, and in particular with the retrograde station, square your natal sun in Cancer, that's probably going to feel very challenging. And having a Cancer sun is intense anyways. You feel everything so deeply, and there's just no limit on the profound ups and downs that your emotions can have. And I think with Mars there, it pushes that limit just to see how far you can go. But with the direct station, square your natal Mars retrograde in Capricorn. First of all, I love this for a couple of reasons. So since you have Mars retrograde in your natal chart, you're more likely to know how to navigate this retrograde period more than others. And it's exalted. And this Mars retrograde and then direct station will be in Aries, which makes it dominant, or in its rulership, comfortable. So this is just a blast of motivation, energy, and inspiration from the universe. I think there will be a level of frustration there, but only frustration in the sense that you're likely so passionate about what you're working on that it's like you don't know where to direct that fuel. So if you stay focused throughout the retrograde period and say, okay, where do I really want to dump all this energy? Because there's going to be so much of it. You're going to come out the other side feeling great. Maybe not great, maybe a little bit exhausted, but you will be primed to, jet yourself into 2021 with much aplomb. So good luck, and let me know how it goes for you. So next up is Jenny. Hi, Jenny. Jenny says, I'm curious about Polaris in the natal chart, the North Star. It's a heavenly body that is popular in non-astrological contexts, and yet I don't think I've heard it discussed in astrology. Can you give us a scoop? This is amazing, and I love this question. So, individual stars in astrology are, in the modern Western astrological tradition, not given as much attention as, let's say, the constellations or the planets or the other individual parts of the star. But they're still there, and they're still important. So traditionally, the Arabs had a stronger tradition of looking at individual stars, and to some extent the Greeks, but mostly the Arabs. So I did a little bit of looking. Fixed stars are an area of curiosity for me, but not an area of expertise. And I wasn't able to turn up as much information as I would have liked about Polaris. What I was able to find was that if it is conjunct a planet in your natal chart, so that's kind of how, let me back up. Fixed stars, everybody has all the stars in their chart somewhere, but they only become important if they're touching something in your natal chart, in my opinion, within 1 degree. So 1 degree or less. This is it has to be absolutely activated with no question, right? So this is not like, wow, I have Polaris within 10 degrees of my midheaven and that makes me important. That's not how this works. This is a much more precise mathematical equation here. So if you do have Polaris conjunct something, in particular conjunct sun, moon, or one of the angles, the delineation of that is having, I saw in some places, having spiritual powers or being a guide. I think where they're getting that is that Polaris obviously is the North Star, was used by sailors to navigate. So if you could extrapolate that mythos out to say, okay, well, if I have this in my chart, I would be a leader. I would have a sort of preternatural understanding of direction and where I'm going. And so you can apply that to your chart. Also, if you're curious about fixed stars, I would recommend looking at the website Astrology King. If I ever need just like a real quick reference on the fixed stars, I usually go there. There's a nice list of the degrees that they're at, and it's a great introductory resource to find out, you know, if you have something conjunct something else, like how it might influence you. So it's a fun astrological rabbit hole to go down, and I hope that you do. Also, Bernadette Brady's Book of Fixed Stars. I do not own it, but I know from the people who work with fixed stars that it is supposed to be a great resource or textbook. So check that out as well. Okay, next up, we have Claudia says, can you talk about bringing forth intercepted energies? So let me stop you there, Claudia. I read with whole sign houses. I have not read a chart with Placidus in probably 3 years, 4 years. Y'all know that I'm a bit agnostic about what house system you should use. I don't think there's a should. I think there's what you like to use in your practice. And because I am a bit influenced by traditional astrology, I go with whole signs. But as far as intercepted energies in the chart, that would be if you used Placidus and it wasn't just one whole sign for each house, you could have a sign that is completely intercepted within one house. And the idea is that it can be more difficult for you to access the energies of that sign. So for you, you said that you have 1 degree Moon-Mars conjunction in an intercepted Leo 8th house. You said you're trying to write a book. Congratulations, that's very exciting. Enjoy writing your book. I know it's super hard. And you're trying to figure out how to get at those energies and bring them forth. So I think there's a couple of things you could do to think about that. I would say first, consider it from a whole sign perspective. Like if you take away that interception and look at it through a whole sign lens, like what does that give you? Like what house does it fall into then? And how can that help you? Especially looking at what your 9th house is in that house system. And I can send you a quick email with more information on that. But yeah, that would be my recommendation. You know, there are people that read with interceptions. I'm just not one of them. So I think, you know, there are things in astrology that can definitely put you at a disadvantage, but no reason to let interceptions be one. It could just be you needing to have a more internal or spiritual dialogue with those planets, as opposed to like forcing it or saying like, I'm going to work really, really hard. And I know for a Moon-Mars conjunction, that's like very external and performative, but think about how you could access those planets in a spiritual way. Is there some sort of ritual performance you could do, something like that? Or is there like ecstatic dancing, like anything that could help you get in touch with your creativity? Automatic writing, I'm not sure. Just allowing your creativity to be a personal spiritual practice could help you get in touch. But good luck. I hope that helps. And if you have any other questions, email me and hopefully I can answer them for you. Okay, Jill. Jill says, I loved your Mars Retrograde Management podcast. Thank you. And I wanted to ask about something you said. I hope I asked this question correctly. Can you tell me where the retrograde will land in my chart? Which house? As you might remember from previous questions, my divorce will be final in early fall. And with your encouragement along the way, as well as that of a therapist, I think I've come to the other side of grief with challenges ahead and confidence. But there's Mars retrograde to contend with. I find your perspective generous, kind, and fascinating. Thank you so much. Let me pull your chart right quick, and I will get right back to you. Okay, Jill, so this Mars retrograde is going to fall in your 6th house, and it's going to go right over your asteroids Vesta, Ceres, and Venus. So that's a lot happening for you. I think this is going to help you untangle all the different roles that you play in your relationships, from sort of service provider, caretaker, and then sensual person, like sensual goddess. And it won't be comfortable. Mars retrograde points out areas where we can be doing better or where you feel unsatisfied, right? I think it's going to go from Vesta, which is that being of service, to Ceres, which are like right on top of each other. So I think the you as being devoted person in relationship and you as being caretaker are very much together. So you're going to have to deal with, well, maybe I don't feel satisfied with just doing that by itself. And then come to, by the end, stationing on your Venus, which is like finally helping you get back in touch with those energies of love, romance, care, and just feeling beautiful and powerful in yourself. The 6th house is about your daily environment and your habits. And I think this is about you making beauty and sensuality a habit, right? It's not something you do sometimes. It's something that you can weave into every part of your life through self-care, through just reminding yourself that you are a beautiful goddess and you are worth it. So I wish you all the best with it. Mars retrograde management kind of has all my best tips and tricks. So, I think this is also about balancing, like allowing yourself to be the assertive one and be a bit demanding, right? So Venus in Aries is the independent person who says, no, like this is how I want it. This is how we're going to do it. It's letting the energy of Mars kind of overcome Venus for a little while. And I think that would be good for you. I think it will be maybe startling, surprising, but all in all, a good thing. So best wishes, and let me know how that shakes out. We've been on this journey together for a while, and I can't wait to see where 2020 ends up for you. So, okay. Next up, we have Sophia. Sophia says, I think the leadership on my software team has become toxic, and I'm wondering if this is the right moment to leave, either internally or externally. Ooh. I'm nervous for obvious reasons. New software team could be worse, especially for a queer reading fat woman and needing job security in a shit economy. All quite valid. But also because my only social connections are attached to this team and my workplace. I've lost a lot of my support circle this year. Best, Sophia. Okay, so first of all, I was just really impressed by your message, because I feel like it's not astrological necessarily, but I feel like you have a really nuanced understanding of what's happening in this situation. Like, you're very aware of your own material needs, the way that you present the realities of society that we live in, which unfortunately we're forced to be more aware of than we want to be sometimes. But I have to applaud you for that. Like, A++, that's already going to put you in a better position than you could have been and would have been otherwise. But when I looked at where this Mars retrograde was going to happen for you, I saw that it was going to be in Aries, which is your 10th house, and stationed direct on your midheaven in Ceres. So the short answer to your question is yes, I agree with you. I think that most likely in some way, the leadership on your team has become toxic, and I'm really sorry to have to deliver that message. I am, if you've watched this a couple times, I don't like to make proclamations like that, but I think the evidence definitely points to that, and it sucks. But, here's my advice. So Mars retrograde is not a good time to make big sweeping changes. the best thing that you can do is protect yourself and lie low until it's over, or if it is toxic, more than likely someone else is going to make a mistake or start a conflict. Allow that to happen. That is actually a gift to you, right? Allow somebody else to start that conflict, because remember the rule in Mars retrograde, whoever starts the conflict loses. So basically, you kind of wish they would, right? Because then that could give you a position of power from which to start that conversation. It just is the way it is. I also think from the positive perspective, this is going to help you really go within and say like, okay, this over here is toxic. I don't want to be here, but what does it look like to be over here? What is the next step for me? And really give that some deep and profound thought. And by the time it stations direct on your midheaven and your Ceres, which is about nurturing and feeling comfortable, I think that you will find, it's also about sustainability. Like, I think that you will be able to find a career path, a team, a way to contribute professionally that isn't toxic and that's a lot more sustainable and nourishing for you. So all is not lost. I did look at the rest of the transits that you're having just to see. I noticed that you are in a Saturn return ever since Saturn went back into Capricorn on July 1st, but you're almost done. Like you know, you're so close to the end. I feel like if you can just hang on a little bit longer until Saturn moves on in December, I think the great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn on top of your Mercury in Aquarius and your 8th house is just going to open your world all the way up, right? It's going to put you, Mercury is about collaboration and teams. It's going to put you on the right teams. You know, the 8th house is resources and investments. My intuitive sense is that like you could be offered a position that allows you a lot more maybe security, or like given some sort of payment or something that like helps. I'm not sure exactly how it could or would manifest, but be aware that if you you can kind of reverse engineer from that and say, okay, if that's where I want to be in December, what steps would I need to take now? Does it look like polishing up my resume and getting that out there? Does it look like privately tapping my network that I already have? Does it mean like trying to build other connections with people besides these toxic folks? Or does it mean just like, when you have to get into these professional battles, your own sustainability is so important. So like look after yourself. You know, no one's gonna do it for you. Maybe me, I'm here to help. But beyond that, like just really take care of yourself and trust that, yeah, by the winter solstice, you're gonna be playing a totally different ball game. And you know, you really will be opened up to finding a team of people who aren't toxic, which you so deserve. You're so wise, and you have so much going for you, and I wish you all the best in the situation. So take care of yourself and do not be a stranger. Let me know how it all turns out for you. Jason, good to see you, Jason. Sorry, take a drink of water. So you have a really interesting question, very unique. Jason says, I just did my Astro.com chart the other day and I learned about Nessus. As mine is a pretty prominently placed one between my sun and the tip of my yod, it's alarming. And I've talked in the past about having a kind of intense childhood, but not one that I considered abusive. Does this potentially point to me being deluded, especially in the 12th house? More important to me, I want to make sure I'm not bearing some sort of threat to my own kids. I've been short with them a bit as the pandemic wears on, but I don't want to be deluded of my cosmic identity is stamped with abuser. Thanks for your consideration. Whew. Okay, so this message broke my heart for a lot of reasons, but hopefully you can come away from this video feeling a lot of comfort and a lot of perspective. Fingers crossed. So first of all, whenever Nessus is a really new thing in astrology, it's one of the centaurs. Centaurs are basically new research. I know Chiron's gotten a lot of airplay and press, but Chiron, Lilith, like these things they're not the astrology that's been in circulation for hundreds of years. And I think it's great that people are researching them and using them, but you have to take it with a grain of salt, first of all. Secondly, I know you're going to be like, of course Amelia would say this, but you got to go to the myth and say, what does the myth actually say about this? So Nessus was a centaur. He tried to rape Hercules' wife, super fucked up. So Hercules shot him with an arrow poisoned with the blood of the Hydra. She didn't know that, and so to get back at Hercules, Nessus told her to give it to Hercules, and that would give him like the poison. He told her that it was some sort of elixir that would give Hercules eternal life, and so accounts differ as to whether she put it on his robe or had him drink it, him being Hercules, but it ultimately did end up killing Hercules. After that, though, Hercules was given a hero's welcome on Mount Olympus by the gods. So there is an element of deceit here. There is an element that rape is there. And also things that are poisoned. I think it shares some DNA with the stories about Medea, so maybe looking into that mythos for the feminine side as well. So a couple of things as this actually relates to cycles of abuse. So Nessus, if people are watching and they don't know, people call it like the abuser's point, or like something in the chart that can show if you've either experienced abuse or are an abuser. So from my perspective, I can't say this loud enough, don't use astrology to label people abusers or otherwise. Don't do it. That's not what it's for. And I say that as someone who, I think we can use astrology to be aware and heed some kind of warnings. But the thing about astrology is that it's a symbolic language. And those symbols can stand for so many different things. How do you know, right? How can you be totally sure that the symbol that it's landing on is that of abuser? Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's that you experienced abuse. Maybe it is something more mild than that. Maybe it's that, you know, looking at where it's placed in your chart, conjunction Mercury and Jupiter in Cancer in the 12th house. So, you know, Jupiter is both exalted in Cancer and dominant in the 12th house. Maybe it just enhances that action of Jupiter with Mercury there, that you tend to overstate things or exaggerate, and that can backfire sometimes. You know, not everything in astrology has to have the darkest possible permutation. You know, I'm sharing this information at a time when, you know, right now Mars is square Pluto as I'm recording this, and Mars and Pluto in hard aspect, whether it's the conjunction, square, or opposition, square being the most potent, is kind of the most effective tool I've found to uncover I will say the potential for abuse in a chart. Now, there are plenty of people who have Mars square Pluto who, you know, they can take that energy and maybe become advocates for people who are abused, or push sexual discourse forward, or sublimate their anger into their art. Like, there's so many positive ways that it could show up. But I think in your case, like, don't allow, especially a new point like Nessus, to potentially taint what you believe to be true about your childhood or your own relationship to your children. I think if you are having feelings like that otherwise, that's something to talk through in therapy with a professional who can help you. You know, trauma is a complicated thing, and it affects the memory, and it's okay to talk to somebody and have them help you figure out the specifics, but certainly no astrologer is equipped to have that conversation with you. We can just show you the potential and help you heal spiritually, hopefully, if we're doing our jobs right. But I hope that this helps. You know, I hope that this is a good example of how, you know, it could be something as simple as just like having a tendency to overstate things or have people overstate things to you. But yeah, like, don't let astrology make you gaslight yourself. But if astrology is triggering something in you to say, I think this is validating something that I think I already know, that's a different type of conversation, but that's not the sense that I get from your email. So I want you to take comfort, take heart, and know that, yeah, I can't say if you're an abuser or not, but I sincerely doubt it. Oh my goodness, what an awful thing to consider. I think the fact that you're considering that puts you head and shoulders above other folks. So take care of yourself, and if you have any more questions, hit me on my email, okay? Okay, so next up is Bobby. Bobby says, hi Amelia, I have what appears to be two stelliums in a sextile to each other. Venus, Saturn, Pluto, and the Sun in Libra in the first house. Wow. And Moon, Mars, Neptune, and Sagittarius in the third house. This seems like a lot to unravel. Yes, absolutely. What would you suggest as a starting point to understanding this configuration? So here's what I would do. In astrology, so y'all remember in math in elementary school learning the order of operations? What is it, like addition, multiplication, division? I don't know. I'm not a mathematician. I'm an astrologer. I know those things are linked, but whatever. That's not the point. So there is kind of an astrological order of operations. There are things that are considered more important points. And so what I would do first is try to suss out, okay, where are the important points, and go for that first. So when I say important points, I'm looking for luminaries, so sun or moon. Yeah, so that doesn't really help us rule out anything. Then I would look for chart ruler, which is Venus. So you got the sun and Venus together, close to your ascendant in the first one. So that's what I would look to first. And that kind of shows you like, and one step further, Venus is dominant. So the next step would be, are there any planets that are dominant, and look at those as well. So nothing really dominant, you know, there's the moon in the second chunk. Nothing really dominant, no chart ruler, nothing like that. But the other has both an angle, chart ruler, a luminary. So like that first one is going to be a lot more pronounced and be a really good starting point for you. I think that Venus and the Sun and Libra in the first house also, oh, I didn't even notice this, but I do now. So Saturn is exalted in Libra, and Saturn is also a part of that first one. So you see you can use the essential dignities as well to suss out like which things are gonna be stronger and demand more of your attention. So yeah, you really are kind of the most Libra-iest Libra, but it is challenging because you have Venus and Saturn together, which we've talked about in these videos, is difficulties with accepting your own worthiness of love, right? So you have this profound, deep understanding of beauty and love and harmony, but an unwillingness to allow yourself to experience it. And you're kind of like a magnet for it. With the Sun Pluto, people are super magnetized. They just like draw stuff into their orbit. But with the Venus Saturn, it can be almost like you keep it within an arm's reach. There's a lot to unpack there, but you know, it's like you love yourself and then you don't. It's very up and down, but I would say you do have as a superpower this incredible ability to understand art and diplomacy and what puts things in harmony and balance. So looking at the next one, Moon, Mars, and Neptune in Sagittarius in the third house. So the thing that stands out to me about that is actually not what you would think. It's that, I don't know, y'all know how big of a fan of Mystic Medusa I am. She talks a lot about men, and I realize I'm assuming your gender. Please feel free to correct me, and I can send you a re-recorded version of this. But masculine, both men and masculine-leaning folks with an X, they have this interesting relationship with Mars and Neptune aspects, and I've seen it play out. You can see it in the media. Mars Neptune gentlemen are kind of these like dashing artist pirate types, right? And they have this kind of alluring mythos around them, but they can be like really hard to pin down. Like basically if you just stay away from, like if you don't go too Dionysian with it, like you can create really incredible works of art and do these like amazing feats of intuition. But there is that sort of drive towards oblivion. So I would warn you off of that. I know, especially since it's in Sagittarius, has a little bit of one-upmanship there, and you're like, but I want to win. I want to experience it all. Moon and Sagittarius, you have a voracious appetite for experience and knowledge. You just want to taste the forbidden fruit. So be careful with that too. But I hope this little lesson was helpful as far as astrologically understanding like where to begin. Also, looking at your chart, I have questions. So you have no negative aspects in your chart. I'm perplexed. I've never seen this before. What is your life like? Like, seriously? Email me. I would love to talk to you and just see what that's like, because I'm sure you still have challenges that you undergo, but like you have so many things so well placed. I just, my grand immutable cross is over here, like the meme of the lady with her hands on her knees, like staring. That's kind of how it feels. So best wishes to you. I will link in the notes to this video some information about Mars and Neptune, masculine leaning folks, and yeah, I hope you enjoy it. I found it really helpful. The female leaning counterpart of that is Venus Uranus ladies, or feminine identifying people. So yeah, wild and untamable. So yeah, I hope that helps. Fingers crossed. All right, next up is April. She says, can you illuminate any obvious or more subtle forces that might be influencing how I relate to house and home? Feels like it's been very much up for me since about a year ago, and potentially tied up to the idea of home from childhood. There's a stronger sense of restlessness, needing to move on or settle down. So I think you nailed it. Just this summer, the Cancer solar eclipse was exactly conjunct your IC, which we've talked about is the point most associated with home and family. And Cancer is a sign of home and family. So yeah, there's this sense of cosmically being pulled to start over, start fresh. It's not a bad thing at all. I think it's really good. I think the restlessness is coming from the fact that you have Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto right now conjunct your midheaven in the 9th house. And the 9th house is wanderlust and the desire to expand and crash beyond boundaries. I'm just quoting Ian Malcolm from Jurassic Park at this point. I'm sorry. But yeah, so that's opposite your IC. So it's like you have these conflicting desires to sort of start over based on like where you want to live or what family looks like to you, and trying to expand beyond the boundaries of what that's looked like in the past. Like I could totally see you maybe moving house once all this COVID thing blows over, if it ever blows over, or just really redefining what that everyday interaction in the home, or your relationship to home looks like. So yeah, you're riding the right wave. Basically, you're picking up. Sometimes astrology is really obvious, and it's weird when people come to me and I think they expect like a long-winded answer. But again, with astrology as a symbolic language, it's like, yep, that you nailed it. Like sometimes you know yourself best, and it looks like in this situation that is absolutely the case. So listen to that intuition. This is what intuition feels like. Listen to it, follow it, and let me know how it goes. Okay, Katie. Hi, Katie. Katie says, I'm starting a long transit of Uranus in my 10th house and trine to my natal Neptune in the 6th house. Any insight or advice on how to make the most of this? Yes. Okay, so Uranus in the 10th transiting, trine to natal Neptune in the 6th, I think is you being given unexpected, totally outside the box career opportunities that require you to be more creative and spiritually tuned in on a day-to-day basis, right? So you can't just go to work and phone it in. That's not going to work. Like your heart has to be there. You have to show up with your whole spirit, your whole soul, And so what that really means is like creating a daily practice of creativity, whether it's just like having a Google Doc where you throw down your ideas, having a journal, going on walks and letting your mind wander and recording it in the voice notes. Those kinds of things are really going to payoff down the line. But yeah, I think it's as simple as whatever you're experiencing in your career, whether it's like a change in position or a change in industry, or just like having weirder, more unusual, and frankly interesting opportunities, is requiring you to be more on the ball, and more wholehearted in your approach. So I hope that helps. Like, it really is beautiful. Creativity abounds, and both Uranus and Neptune are intuition. I would say intuition of the head and intuition of the heart. And so it's the union of that, and you get to benefit. So I hope you love it. Okay, next up, last up, is Lindsay. Hi, Lindsay. I hope you're doing well. Lindsay says, I was reviewing my upcoming solar return chart and noticed that my solar return ascendant will be a near exact conjunction to my natal Mars. I'm with a 3-minute difference. Holy moly, this is like very close. I'm guessing I'll have plenty of energy and should probably watch my temper, but do you have any other insights about what you can expect? Anything else in my return chart I should pay attention to? Oh, I love this. I love that you asked me about a solar return. I love doing solar return readings. Solar returns are interesting because they can be a bit cryptic, and they work best when combined with other timing techniques like annual perfections. But they can pack a real punch. So kudos to you for going out on a limb and asking a solar return question. So I think you absolutely hit the nail on the head as far as the ascendant connection to your natal Mars. I think there will be intense emotions, a lot of motivation, both positive and negative. I think that it's just going to be you having endless fuel to, it will be kind of like having Mars in your first house, but for a whole year. So Mars in your first house is this amazing time to initiate and start projects. And so I think that you'll be able to benefit, be able to benefit from that kind of vibe, but through one birthday to the next. I really think you nailed it. Also, you have a lot going on in your solar return chart. So there's a couple of things that I look at. I look at the angular houses first and say, okay, like what's happening and how might that influence things? I look at the house that the sun's in. I look at the moon. I look at the sign of the ascendant. But I notice that the angular houses in this chart are just very active. So the 10th house is Aries, and it's hugely active, as is the 7th, which is where you have the Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn situation. So this is going to be, like, I think if I had to say, like, more intensity in your career is going to cause you to have to rethink. I don't want to put a strain on, but cause you to have to rethink the sustainability of your most collaborative and closest relationships, right? But that can be a good thing. And I think that, you also have Venus and the moon in the first house of that chart, which is a great thing. Like, you are crushing it. Like, I think you'll be well perceived, and, you might be more emotional, but like in a way that feels comfortable. It is kind of an emotional homecoming, and you feel really connected to the sensual side of your life. Like, how to find beauty and how to experience it. Like, flowers on the mantle and getting a really lovely book and listening to great music all the time. And just attracting, I think it would be a time of releasing the people who aren't meant to be there, and allowing the people who are meant to be there to get even closer. I also noticed in this solar return chart, I look for aspect patterns, and there's both a yod and a T-square. So both of those are triangles that point you in the right direction. The yod is more subtle and spiritual, and the T-square is like, this is where we're going. Sorry about it. So I think that T-square pointing towards your career is like, ready or not, here we come. Career success. Like, you're going to get it, whether you want it or not, and you're going to have to make it happen. But yeah, that yod is also really lovely. It's going to be a really banner year for you, and just take care of yourself. And again, check in with me after a year and let me know how it feels. You usually get a little bit of a sense of how it will feel as soon as a week afterwards, up to a month. Sometimes you feel different. The concept of solar returns makes sense to me because I do personally feel intuitively that birthdays are turning points. So yeah, notice how you feel on your birthday, notice how you feel within a week after and then a month after, and kind of take you some notes and see what you think. And yeah, it's a really powerful technique. And let me know how it goes for you. All right, this has been a lot. Y'all are wonderful. You ask the best questions in the world. Thank you for being so curious. Thank you for being here as patrons. Like, y'all are the ones that make this possible. I hope that you've enjoyed the latest episodes, the Mars retrograde, the latest interviews, and I'm working on some really wonderful stuff for you into the fall. Take care. I love you very much, and I'll see you next time.